size of the book that you were just holding up, Dr. Eschenbach, that's the kind of thing you could have stood on the parapet of a castle and thrown on the attacking enemy and crushed their heads. It is so big. This questioning, I think, really reflects the underlying problem of the complexity of how we deal with drugs that deal with the human body in complex ways, and how do we identify what the issues are, and therefore deal with them through the FDA. And I appreciate the chairman's holding this hearing. We had earlier some discussions among members about the role of the New England Journal of Medicine, and I think one of the points that was missed there is that the New England Journal of Medicine, an enormously important journal, has an editorial position that they would like to see the FDA change the nature of the way we do business in America. And that's acceptable. That's a great debate. My concern is the sensationalization of the process that scares people when we have a problem with drugs. And virtually all drugs they're going to be helpful, but they'll also have sidebar problems. And now, Dr. Eschenbach, Von Eschenbach, you and I have spoken personally on these issues. You know that I'm committed to change and improvement in the FDA. We've also spoken in public hearings and said pretty much the same thing. And we recognize opportunities, but I'm concerned about how we go from here to there. In other words, I think doing Bayesian studies instead of double-blind studies is an important step that we need to take, but we have to do it in the context of procedures that work. And here, what we have is, I think, some alarmism that is extraordinarily important to many people who are suffering from a disease that is difficult and for whom this drug is helpful. But just to sort of give it another perspective, we have I'm going to submit for the record, but read here. In fact, I ask unanimous consent to submit this Lancet journal.
Without objection, that'll be the order.
Taken together, these results, although based on very small numbers of events, certainly raise a signal of concern. Now, signal is, I think, a term of art in the system here, which means we ought to look at it. There's something that we ought to be looking at. So it raises a signal of concern and indicate the need for more reliable information about, essentially, I can't say this name, we call it the drug at hand, rosiglitazone or whatever. It is, pardon me. It's not the one we use when we're asking the pharmacist about it. About the safety of the drug, but the FDA physicians and patients can reasonably wait the results of RECORD, a Phase 3 trial designed specifically to study cardiovascular outcomes. Until the results of RECORD are in, it would be premature to overinterpret a meta-analysis that the authors and the New England Journal of Medicine editorialists all acknowledge contains important weaknesses. To avoid unnecessary panic among patients, a calmer and more considered approach to the safety of Avendia is, that's not what they say here, but I'll call it Avendia, is needed. Alarmist headlines and confident declarations help nobody. This is not a matter of confidence. This is a matter of what happens to people when they take this drug. Now, the problem here is what I think are called surrogate endpoints. And, like controlling blood sugar levels, with Avendia and other diseases. It takes 10 to 15 years to discover and develop a new medicine. Without such endpoints for evaluating a diabetes medicine, for example, what would the development and approval process, wouldn't it take much longer? And how much longer would it take if it does? And do you agree with the value of using surrogate endpoints? Dr. Von Eschenbach.
Yes, sir, I do. And I also echo your important point about the need for continuous improvement. We're seeing revolutions in science and technology around us that are going to enable FDA to continuously improve, including how we use clinical trials, new clinical trial type designs that will be much more informative. We will also be using many more tools of science in biomarkers and genomics, et cetera, that's going to help us with regard to the ability to use these biomarkers and these intermediate endpoints.
May I just, I see my time is about to expire, but let me just ask about this study in particular. The meta-analysis by Dr. Nissen excluded studies in which there were no adverse events. From a layman's point of view, of not including studies where there were no heart attacks or other heart problems, that would seem to skew the results a little. But more specifically, with respect to heart attacks, I understand that 6 studies were not used because none of the patients had a heart attack. Even more studies, approximately half of the overall available, were not used because there were no deaths. Yet headlines screamed about a 43% increased chance of death. Is that a responsible way to communicate to the public?
Well, we value all data and all input with regard to these issues, and this study, like other meta-analysis, has both strengths and weaknesses that have been discussed and pointed out by others, and we used it as an additional piece of information, but not necessarily one upon which decisions in and by themselves would be made. And I'll let Dr. Delpan speak specifically to how we use data and meta-analysis.
Right, well, I think we've
Mr.
spoken
Chairman,
about...
I see my time's expired, but let me just point out, the question I ask is it responsible to use this metadata to create what is essentially a public panic?
I believe that the data was being presented in the journal as a contribution and an additional piece of information. We've all done that in our careers in terms of publishing information and data that we believed was a valuable contribution. We leave it then to the entire scientific domain to weigh that, add that, evaluate that in the larger context, and I believe that's what was hopefully going to occur here. Other people reacted, perhaps responded to that information, and perhaps created some of the concerns that you're alluding to.
If the Chair would indulge just one follow-up, there's something different from publishing and waiting a reaction and publishing and promoting. Would that be different in your mind?
I can't speak to the author's intent. I have not had any conversations with Dr.
Mr.
Nissen.
Chairman, I see my time has expired and I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Now